Hi, I'm Leon, the founder of Audio Advice. This video is all about caring for your growing vinyl collection. With record sales across the world continuing to grow, I thought it would be fun to go over some of my favorite ways to take care of your vinyl records. If you're into buying vinyl, you've probably found out it's a really fun hobby and you can quickly spend several $100s or more on your favorite music. One way to save some money, and I must say the hunt is just a ton of fun for me, is to search for used records in good condition. But whether you're buying all new records, used, or a combination of the two, before you know it, you'll have a pretty substantial investment in your growing collection. When I see someone who has more than a few records with just a simple brush to clean them, it just makes me cringe. They're missing out on so much. Usually it's just a lack of knowledge in why it is important to properly clean your records and how to safely do it. The purpose of this video is to go over how I think you should keep your records in the best possible shape. There are actually several aspects to it I'll cover. There is just getting a record clean to start with, but also keeping it in that state and storing it properly. First, I'll go over my thoughts on used and new records. Brand new records are normally in very good condition. However, you have to think about how they stamp a record. A metal stamper presses down into the vinyl. In researching this subject, I found some record-producing companies spray what is called mold release compound onto the stamper, while others put an anti-stick compound into the vinyl itself, negating the need for the release compound. The catch is, with a new record, there's no way to know which way it was done. In some cases, this compound can reduce the audio quality a little bit. I also see some new records where static has caused small dirt particles to stick to the vinyl. Used records are a whole different story. You can look at them and see surface scratches or even grime, but without a super powerful microscope, you have no idea of knowing what is really on them. The store you bought it from could have cleaned it just using tap water, which will leave a residue. It could have been exposed to finger oils, tobacco, or cannabis smoke, or had soda, beer, wine, or whatever spilled on it, then just wiped off. As a matter of fact, I just got this Graham Nash record on Discogs, and when I got it, I opened it up, and I saw all this residue all over it, so obviously this was cleaned with something that left a residue, so I've got to find a way to really clean this guy. So what is the point of all this? It comes down to, I think you need to use a wet cleaner if you want your records really clean. And when it comes to wet cleaning, you can get really deep into it or do some basic steps. There are a variety of wet cleaning machines on the market, and I want to go over my top 4 choices. Before you think, why should I spend money on a cleaning machine? Just add up the cost of your vinyl collection. For many collections, buying a good cleaning machine is less than $1 or $2 per record in your library. Now let's take a look at some of my favorite machines, and I'll give you a quick demo of how they work during the video. The first is the Spin Clean. This system is totally manual and does require devoting some cleaning time, as it's not really designed to do just one record at a time. But for the cost, it does a great job. Spin Clean has actually been around since 1975, and it's made in the United States. So the way you set this up, it comes with these rollers. You drop them in here, and the outer ones are for 12-inch records. Then it's got these 2 brushes, and you want to make sure that you brush these brushes off first just to make sure there's no debris on them before you stick them in, which we're going to do here. Then they only go in one way. Now, there's a little line in here. You want to add distilled water up to the line. It is very important that you use distilled water. Tap water can leave a residue. The Spin Clean instructions say it's okay to use tap water, but I don't agree with that. Okay, we've got that. So we have the Spin Clean fluid, and the idea is you put a little capful here, and then you dump that over the rollers. Then you take the record and just drop it in like this. Now this is the manual part. You spin it around, and it's a little hard to spin actually. And if you want to be more vigorous with it, use some rubber gloves. I think it's 3 times one way, and you can count the label. Now we're going the other way. Then you pull it out, let it drip off, and then we lay it down on their cleaning cloth, and you just go around in a circular motion to get it dry. And then you do the other side. The cool part about this fluid is Spin Clean's been perfecting it over the decades, and it has a compound in it that will capture the dirt and cause it to drop to the bottom of the cleaner, which is pretty cool. Spin Clean supplies instruction on how to clean these pads so you can reuse them, which is nice. The part I'm not crazy about is the pad does not completely get the record as dry as a vacuum machine, and you'll need to find a way to air dry them. A lot of people use a dish drying rack that will hold them safely. You can put several of them in as you're doing your cleaning process. Air drying, though, does have the risk of some dirt remaining on, but for the most part, their system does a great job of cleaning. The fluid should get you through about 20 to 50 records, depending upon how dirty they are. You should replace the fluid if it starts to look cloudy. Also, if you're cleaning a batch, start with your thin records first, then leave those 180-gram copies till the end, as they'll push the brushes apart. When you're done, pull the brushes out to air dry, and then put the cover over the machine, or just dump the fluid out and do a fresh batch the next time. Eventually, you'll have to clean the bottom of the machine, which is a bit of a pain, but for the cost of the Spin Clean, it's not something to complain about. Another tip is, and this applies to all record cleaners, if your records are visibly pretty dirty, clean them first with a record brush to get the surface dirt off to keep your cleaning solution from getting dirty too fast. Overall, this is a very well-tested and highly effective machine for a super low cost. This mobile fidelity brush is a great thing to use for that basic first cleaning. And it's pretty neat. I've looked at this and now that residue that was there is completely gone, so it did a really good job. Before I jump into the next machine, let's talk about what to do with your clean records. That sleeve you pull the record out of, especially if it's a used one, likely has a lot of dirt inside it. I highly recommend you put your clean record in a fresh sleeve. When you pull the record out again, I suggest you use an anti-static brush, something like this, to clean it before playing. And make sure you store your records vertically. Finally, you'll want to use a good brush to keep your stylus clean on your turntable. This one from MoFi is really nice. Now let's move on to my favorite machines, the Pro-Ject VCE and VC-S2. You may have heard of Pro-Ject, as they make some of the best-selling turntables in the world in their factories all over Europe. Who better than to invent some first-class cleaning machines and some great fluid to use with them? The real difference between these two models is how you plan to clean your records. I'll get into that shortly. Both machines have an aluminum-clad exterior, which means you don't have to worry about cleaning fluid spills. I really like the fact the record just sits on a small platter that is only the size of the record label. This keeps the record surface from touching anything dirt might stick to. When you first set the machine up, be sure and observe one side of the small platter has a recessed hole for a single screw to go in, otherwise the screw head will stick up and your record will not lay flat. The machines come with a starter bottle of Pro-Ject's concentrated cleaning solution. They recommend you mix this with distilled water in a ratio of 20:1 for normal cleaning and 10:1 for very dirty records. Pro-Ject supplies a mixing bottle, but I prefer to use old-style squirt bottles and suggest you get two. You can simply do the math on how large your bottle is and use a kitchen scale with the gram setting to mix up two bottles with different ratios. Be sure and use good distilled water. Each machine has a vacuum brush with replaceable fabric pads and a cleaning brush. Like my Spin Clean recommendation, I suggest you brush these off first in case there's any residue left on them. I've got the record on here. I'm going to clamp it down. It's also nice this has a threaded clamp so you can get it pretty tight and snug. Then I like to take the fluid and just put a little bit on the brush to start with and hold it over the record surface because this stuff works pretty well. Get the brush wet and it's going to drop on the record. Then we start it spinning. And we go about 2 or 3 revolutions. And then we want to reverse it, which is also a great feature these machines have. Now this is starting to bubble up a little bit, which is a good job. You can tell the stuff is doing its work. It's good to let it sit and do its job for about 20 to 30 seconds. Then you simply move the brush over, turn the record back on again, and turn on the vacuum. It only takes a couple of turns to completely dry the record, which is great. You can go back the other way if you want to. And there we've got a very clean and dry record. Now if you really want to get geeky, you can get another bottle of just distilled water. and this will give you a second rinse and get a second brush that's just for the distilled water. So you put a little bit on the record and some on the brush, and then we'll turn it on again and basically do the same thing as we did before. And now we're sure this record is really clean. The VC-S2 basically works exactly the same way. You get a little bit nicer clamp that's made out of metal, but really they work the same. So what machine is better for you? It really depends on how you're going to use it. The VCE has an exhaust port on the top, and I find after I've cleaned about 6 sides, maybe 8 sides, a little bit of moisture will blow back out of it and wet the bottom side of the record you're cleaning. So that's no good. Pro-Ject now supplies a small round disc you can put under your record to block this, but I'm not crazy about putting a clean record back down on a disc that will get dirty. The bigger VC-S2 has the exhaust on the side and a larger fluid reservoir. I did find the bigger machine to have slightly more noise than the VCE, but both are pretty quiet. So if you plan to clean your records in batches, or if you're going to use the second rinse method to do more than 2 or 3 at a time, you should probably get the VC-S2. But if you're just going to clean them as you play them or a couple at a time, the VCE is probably the best value record cleaner I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot. After you're done cleaning, you can let your brush air dry, or you can wash it in the sink with a distilled water final rinse once it gets dirty. I also suggest you brush off the pads on the vacuum arm fairly often and replace them when they look worn. Overall, these are just incredible machines for what they sell for, and I highly recommend them. The last machine on my list is by no means the same bargain as the Pro-Ject models are, but it comes from the same region. This is the famous Audiodesk Ultrasonic record cleaner. This is really for the very serious collector, but is simply a marvel to watch in operation. Just like with the other models, you start out with good distilled water and add a bottle of the Audiodesk solution to the machine. There's a nice indicator on the front that lets you know when you have enough water in it. Then you simply drop your record in and press start. The reservoir will fill up with fluid, the brushes will start to turn, and before you know it, you'll be mesmerized watching your record spin around as both sides get clean with both the action of the brushes and an ultrasonic system. Sometimes, if you notice, you have to give it a little push to make sure it's perfectly seated in it or start spinning. Then the water will automatically drain out and the vacuum system will come on as your record slowly spins and dries. Wow, that's a clean record. I do find every now and then it doesn't completely dry it, and you can start a second drying cycle by simply holding down the start button until you hear 6 beeps, and it'll finish the job. Records cleaned on this machine are as clean as anything I've ever seen. Plus, it's just a ton of fun to watch it in operation. All of the parts are replaceable, and it's really easy to drain out the fluid reservoir, which I recommend after about 50 to 100 records, depending on how dirty they are. Is it a bargain? Heck no. But it has to be one of the best record cleaning machines on the planet. That completes our overview of my favorite record cleaning machines. If you're just starting out, the Spin Clean is a great value, but you will need to be set up to clean several records at once. I feel the best bang for the buck is by far and away the Pro-Ject VCE. I hope this video on the care and cleaning of your vinyl collection has been helpful to you. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to us via email, phone, chat, or drop by one of our stores in Raleigh or Charlotte, North Carolina. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you next time.